We did say at the end of the last video that we would make a follow-up following the verdict.
Obviously, the verdict has come out, but they are in the process of appealing it.
Yeah.
So that and other things has kind of delayed this follow-up coming out.
Was it a surprise to you?
It was a surprise to a lot of people. I mean, it's always tough when you take on a big media company like NGN. I think there was a confidence that the judge was going to rule in Johnny's favor. There. Like, when you're dealing with a civil trial, it is tough, and I do think it's probably worth distinguishing there is a big difference in the burden of proof in a civil trial versus the burden of proof in a criminal trial.
Yeah.
I do believe that if there was a criminal case in which the prosecution had to prove that Johnny Depp physically abused Amber, I'd be confident that the judge or jury would rule in Johnny's favor if it were a criminal trial. But civil trials, 51%, so you're basically, it's more or less the flip of a coin when you're dealing with a civil trial. You could go into a civil trial with a great case, but this was a one-man show. This wasn't a jury trial. This was one man. This was Justice Nichols.
Yeah.
Now, and let's just strip away like all the personalities involved. Let's just say I was speaking to you about a couple that I know, a hypothetical couple, so there's no names typed to them. Man, woman, they're in a relationship, and that there's domestic abuse going on in that relationship. A majority of people would make the initial assumption that it's the man beating the woman. So there's already kind of that cultural bias towards domestic violence. And I'm not saying this is the case, but I'm proposing that it's a possibility that Justice Nichols had his mind made up, maybe even on a subconscious level.
You know, you don't know what goes through. Like a judge is one person.
Yeah, and for legal purposes, I cannot overstate that this is just speculation on our part. We're not saying this is what happened at all. This is just speculation.
Yeah. I can't stress it enough that many of Johnny Depp's most vocal supporters are survivors of domestic abuse themselves.
Not necessarily fans, just supporters.
Yeah, well, I think people were very emotional at this judgment because they're looking at it and going, wow, if a man like Johnny Depp with all his resources can go to court and not be believed by a judge, then what hope does the average Joe have?
There were several inconsistencies, and you mentioned there about abuse survivors. That's saying nothing of people who actually testified in this very trial, who came out as being survivors. Kate James,
star witness,
stated while on the stand that she was a survivor of sexual violence. And in Justice Nichols' ruling,
he didn't outright call her a liar, but he did say that she was motivated by spite because she no longer worked for Amber.
Yeah, that really jumped out to me, that this, in the age of Me Too and believe all women, it's clearly a case of, well, just believe some women as long as it fits a particular narrative.
Yeah, and I remember when the verdict for the judgment first came out, you texted me like, oh my God, poor Kate James.
That is a major middle finger to her.
Yeah.
That's saying nothing of the bravery it took for her to come out on the stand like that and say, listen, I've been through all this terrible experience, and just to be, singled out in the ruling. I don't think he needed to do that, because I don't believe he singled out every other witness on the stand, or did he?
Well, that's where we get into the appeal, because I believe Johnny's team have pointed out that he didn't give his reasoning why he found that many of Johnny's witnesses were not believable.
One of the reasons he gave for ruling in favor of NGN and for essentially believing Amber's testimony is that she made this testimony under oath, therefore she's telling the truth.
Yeah, because nobody's ever lied under oath before.
At the same time, Johnny and his witnesses took that same oath, so by that logic, would they not be telling the truth as well?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a massive inconsistency.
He also, we've all heard the infamous audios. So he said, her alleged admissions of striking Mr. Depp on audio, they were off the cuff, so she wasn't making them under oath, so I don't put any weight to them. I'm going, what?
Yeah.
I mean, like that sets a really dangerous precedent for other criminal and civil litigations,
You
because
basically make a recorded confession
of murder. Oh, but
that means
that's
nothing.
yeah. If this verdict still stands and the appeal doesn't go through, it does beg the question, you know, years down the line, will lawyers actually use that argument?
Well, if a precedent is set, then it can be cited in later cases. Again, that all depends on how this appeal goes. Of course, one of the biggest cruxes of Nichols' ruling is the $7 million settlement from the divorce. Judge Nichols made explicit reference to that.
Amber said in her statements that she donated her entire divorce proceedings, $7 million, must emphasise past tense, donated, not about to donate, not donating, donated.
Even better, she's gone on national television and said the same thing.
All kinds of accusations flying your way when you said all this, and then there was a divorce settlement, you got $7 million. People were saying this is all about the money, but then you did something that twisted that whole argument. What did you do with that money?
$7 million in total was donated to, I split it between the ACLU and Children's Hospital of Los Angeles.
She said that in her statements for this trial, and Justice Nichols ruled that,
She was telling the truth when she said that.
and therefore that's hardly the act of a gold digger. Evidence has since come to light that she did not donate the money to charity.
She pledged.
She pledged.
Pledged and donating, they're not the same thing.
That is overwhelming evidence that Amber lied under oath. And the thing is, her own legal team flipping responded to that, essentially admitting it, saying that, oh yeah, Amber was going to donate it eventually, but because of all these litigations with Johnny, she's had to pay extortionate legal fees, so she hasn't been able to. And like, well, hang on a second, so he didn't start taking out legal action until 2018, so can she predict the future? Like, okay, I can't give the money away because
I'm planning to write a libelous opinion piece,
which Johnny will sue me for. Like, what? You know, oh yeah, I better not give the money away because Johnny's going to sue this guy and his boss is going to call me in as a witness, so I better not give any of the money away.
And let's not forget that Amber was allowed to make this big podium speech at the steps of the courthouse while on the last day of the trial, not after the last day had finished, while it was still going on.
Just as the TMZ video was being shown to the judge.
Yeah.
I think at the time, like, there was a lot of people said, like, how is she allowed to do that? I'm sure the judge won't like that. It's disrespectful to the courts to make statements like that when the trial's still ongoing. She was just a witness at the end of the day in London.
Yeah.
Like, she wasn't on trial.
She was under no obligation to remain there after she gave her testimony.
Yeah.
I mean, she is being sued for similar in VA. So
Yeah.
this was really her front row seat to what kind of case that they could potentially put forward against her. But it would also, I suppose, benefit her to be there for all the days so she can essentially take notes and be prepared and make any changes as necessary.
Yeah, I mean, okay, granted, she could have still read over the trial transcripts, but it's not the same as being in the courtroom yourself. You can kind of take the mood, the body language of the other witnesses, you know, and obviously her legal team were there too, so they could possibly use that to their advantage in Virginia.
Yes. I suppose that's something we kind of have to remind ourselves of. That this particular case is Johnny Depp versus MGM, not Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. But of course, it's a lot sexier to sell Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard in the media.
Yeah.
Now, what's happening in Virginia is Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard.
Yeah, but I mean, the media coverage of like both of these cases has been absolutely appalling. I think it's safe to say that Johnny has won in the public eye. There was a huge backlash, an absolute outpouring of anger and upset whenever the Sun trial did not go in Johnny's favour.
Even like legal experts, far more qualified than us to comment on it, were surprised and taken quite aback. So it's also worth mentioning that Dan Wooten has upped sticks and left the the Sun/NGN. So
you make of that what you will.
Make of that what you will.
I don't think that would affect if the appeal goes forward?
No.
So, to clarify, in the appeal, Johnny's team are asking for a retrial.
Yes.
Which, in my view, is not the actions of somebody who's actually guilty. He wants to go through that again. Like, that is what he is willing to do to prove his innocence.
Yeah, he's taken this issue to court on both sides of the Atlantic.
Yeah. The appeals court have granted Johnny a hearing on the 18th of March, in which they decide whether or not, if the retrial happens, Johnny will be allowed to introduce new evidence. And I really sincerely hope that he's allowed to do that. Anyways, folks, until next time, let me know your thoughts in the comments, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and
I suppose would want to give a shout out just to Lost Beyond Pluto. She has been putting up some fantastic, very informative videos on this. I would highly recommend you go check those out.
She's a lawyer and she makes videos on many high-profile cases, like the Michael Jackson estate versus HBO case. She's been doing Meghan Markle. She's been doing this case. I would highly recommend her. And also Spiritually Empowered Coaching has made some great videos on the case and based on the transcripts and witness statements.
Yeah, and of course, Incredibly Average, or that Brian fella, depending on what platform. His videos are informative as always, and look forward to his next release. And finally, the Movie Myths and Monsters podcast, which just came out there a couple of weeks ago. You can catch that on Spotify, and we'll put a link to it in the description.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's basically all I have to say.
Yes.
And until the next time, guys, keep safe, keep well, be good to yourselves, and we'll catch you on the flip side.